Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. ReaderHouse is going international this week. Let's go to London and join Uchenna George Nkemnacho on Zoom to talk about his labor of love entitled Olkumi Kingdom, a peculiar Yoruba enclave about a little-known group of people in Nigeria.
It is a book that was written by my father. It isn't actually my book that I have written. He wrote it before he passed away, but he did not publish it. So I felt I'll be honoring his legacy by publishing the book, especially for a much wider audience.
Tell me what it's about.
It's a deeply researched and heartfelt exploration about our Olukumi people. Our Olukumi people are a peculiar Yoruba. The main Yoruba people are well written about, but the Olukumis are relatively unknown. And it delves into the history, culture, language, and resilience of our people. It's a testament to my father's passion for cultural preservation and his dedication to bringing lesser-known stories to light.
Give me one story that you felt most passionate about when you decided to publish this book.
I felt very passionate because the Yorubas are inhabited in the western part of Nigeria.
Okay.
The Olukumis are in what is called the Midwest. We're surrounded by non-Yoruba speaking people, and as such, very little is known about us. So the peculiar part of it is, how did we eventually get to that destination? And that is why the book, there are two issues there. How did we get to the destination, and how have we been able to preserve our heritage, given that we're completely surrounded by non-Yoruba speaking communities?
I mean, I can't even imagine.
The most striking thing is, because we're surrounded by Igbo speaking people, we have started answering Igbo names. For example, my name is Nkemnacho Uchenna, which is an Igbo name. We've become bilingual, if you understand what I mean.
Okay.
We've become bilingual, but at the same time, we have maintained our peculiar heritage. So if somebody from the Southwest who's Yoruba were to have heard of my name, he or she would automatically assume that I was Igbo, not realizing that Olukumi people are actually Yorubas.
Okay.
And it's taken a while. It's taken centuries for us to become ingrained in our present locality. An amazing part about it is the reasons that actually made them migrate from the predominantly Yoruba-speaking areas to the Igbo-speaking area. It must have been wars that were occurring over time, and then they had to migrate to where they presently find themselves.
What is it that here in the United States, what is it that we can learn from this book?
I think what they can learn from the book everywhere, it's the way the community has been able to integrate with diverse people. And it's how the people have been able to use diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, in getting along with people that they now find in their present locality. It tells a lot about skirmishes, wars that they have had over time, and how they've been able to arrive at resolutions for the peaceful conduct about the society.
You know, one of the things you put in your synopsis of your book is that, women were marrying women
Yeah,
There was
that's
a
not.
reason. There was a reason you put that in your synopsis, I would
Yeah,
think.
obviously. There's a reason I put that in there. A lot of people, especially in Black Africa, they're thinking it is abnormal for women to get married to women. And the reason I put that in there is to show that we have always had centuries old tradition whereby women actually get married to women. And it is quite strange. You would obviously be aware of the fact that majority of African governments have been saying we are against LGBT and the rest of it. The point why I actually put it down there was for people to see that it is not unusual within the Black culture for women to get married to women, and the Olukumi tradition actually explores that angle.
This sounds like a book that, you take a class
Yeah,
to learn about.
I agree with that. It's quite a detailed book. It's meant to be an educational experience, and like you would have realized, it's also quite a lengthy book. The main reason why my father decided to write the book was for people who have an interest in African history, cultural studies, and the intricate tapestry of Nigeria's diverse ethnic landscape. Because from most people's awareness, if I could say, Nigeria is supposed to be so homogeneous. They believe Nigeria is mainly Hausas, Yorubas, and the Igbos, but there are over 300 ethnic minorities out there that most people don't know about, and the Olukumis happen to be a minority amongst the minority.
So are you sending this book to universities that have African studies?
I have given a copy to the School of Oriental and African Studies of the University of London, and they were excited to receive a copy of it. I am actually thinking about some Black universities in America to actually send copies to at the same time. But that I haven't done for yet. The London University have already received theirs.
Will you then go speak about the book?
I'll be glad to do so. And I guess there are people, members of my community, especially the king of my community, Oloza Isinemeze, who will be prepared to take this further as well. My part of this process initially was to fulfill my father's unfulfilled ambition, and then wherever it takes us afterwards, so be it.
That's icing on the cake, right? You got it done.
It's icing on the cake indeed.
This was a labor of love. This must have really been intense.
It is, because my father dedicated several years to researching the book and writing the book.
Yeah.
And the process that he did involved extensive travel, interviews with members of the community, and a thorough documentation of the way of life. He was a legal draftsman, so he approached the work with a meticulous attention to detail. Oh. Because he's passed away now, it took me some time to organize and prepare the manuscript for publication. But like you said, I was determined to see his work come to fruition and honor his efforts.
Great. Are you going to keep writing, do you think?
It depends. My main goal right now is to make sure it is well publicized, and that is why I appreciate interviews like this. Okay. And so long as it is well publicized and disseminated, I'm all right with it. But eventually, I hope to build on some other works that he has kept at the side, because he kept quite a lot of information and notes.
Wow.
And hopefully, another one of them might become a new book as well.
Great. I'm really glad we got the chance to talk. Thank you so much.
I am so excited, Miss, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. It's a pleasure.
All right, we are joining AA on Zoom in Serbia, author of Mythos, The Origin of the Gods. AA, does what you do for a living influence your writing in any way?
Maybe with some occasional situations that come about, with certain schemes and betrayals that can occur. They kind of influence in that regard of just opening up my vision of what can happen in real life. And definitely sometimes we think of some fiction work being unrealistic, but real life can even be worse than that.
I know.
So obviously, for those who look around, they can always find inspiration.
How long have you been writing?
Actually, when I was in school, even at a young age, we would have these assignments, and I wouldn't know until much later that already there I was showing some creative potential. But of course, I never looked into it deeper. So actually, the moment with the COVID restrictions and the lockdowns and everything, I had extra time. So I guess that would be the defining moment. And I was just looking for something that wasn't there on the market, something that would activate my mind. And I was thinking, okay, what would I like to see? What would I like to hear or read about or watch? And it just gave me some inflow of ideas.
You went the fantasy sci-fi route.
Yes, yes.
Okay, why is that? Is that the kind of stuff you like to read?
Well, I'm not an avid reader per se. During my studies, I had to read a lot of books regarding economics and business management. So that's where I'm actually more knowledgeable in. So I took the route of sci-fi with fantasy because I saw the potential of that kind of topic in today's age. I saw the potential of people realizing what technology can actually do. So that's the sci-fi element. And then I took the idea of, for example, ancient mythologies where we give certain gods power. But with today's knowledge of how technology can give us that power, I was like, okay, let's mix these two. Let's take the usualness of the mythological stories of, for example, Hercules. And instead of having him being the son of a god, let's have him as a science experiment of one of these gods per se, or a scientist who gave him some additional boost in physical strength.
So he's like a
Right?
modern day Frankenstein.
Kind of. So that's the idea of it. But for the people who read The Lord of the Rings and are known for the other books as well as the Silmarillion, the first one, this book in particular is my kind of origin story for the people who would later become the gods of the mythologies. I needed the origin story just to base myself, to ground myself, to know where I'm starting from. And then that way, chronologically, I can expand into all these mythological stories from around the globe. So from Egyptians to Scandinavians to Greek, the most famous ones, and of course, maybe sprinkle a bit of Japanese mythology, maybe South American mythologies, African mythologies. So there's a lot of potential there. And using my kind of economic and business management approach, I was like, okay, let's tap into this. Let's see where this leads. And luckily, all the feedback has been amazingly positive. It was great to see, and that's the beauty of it all. Once you have the finished work, just hearing one person how much they enjoyed that work, it just fills my heart, and I can't wait to publish more. And so I have works in my mind, but I have to see first the potential of this work itself if people are interested.
Okay.
Because of course I'm a big fan of storytelling, but I don't want to waste my time if it's not very popular.
So how does the story go?
Okay, so I took inspiration from a lot of kind of biblical stories of betrayal as a core entity. So that's what drives the story through. I then took a sprinkle of this scientific part, try to ground myself, limit myself in what can happen. And being really a nitpicker in details, I try to have all the loopholes closed up before I finish the work. So the story is about 5 brothers who are born, where actually only the pregnancy was planning on having one child being born. And this is where the scientific part enters. That mystery is what you discover at the end of the book. And because these 5 brothers were actually, in fact, a split of one person, that's where the interesting part of the story comes. Because one person is more empathetic, is more caring for others. Another person is more logical, more business oriented. A third one is more scheming, more alluring. A fourth one is more like lucrative and funny, like wants to play tricks. And the fifth one, which becomes the leader of this utopia, because they are all were supposed to be the one son of the actual next generation, next leader of this utopia. But because there were five, now there's a problem. And the story goes about them not knowing about each other because they're split at birth. And that's where the trick is. Because, of course, you would follow the logic, okay, the first one that was born would logically be the successor, the heir to the throne, per se. But because of the human element, I guess, they are alien the species is alien, but they have the humanity that we share. That's where I try to connect these principles of their race and ours. Basically, that humanity is what sets things in motion. And that's what drives the revenge story of the firstborn who was not chosen as heir, but instead it was the secondborn. And that secondborn is my, let's say, main character. All five of them are main characters. But this secondborn is, as readers will come to see, is, of course, of a kind heart, but is very, as a presence, a leader. But he is a bit naive, so he needs some help from others, but often gets him in trouble. And that's what helps drive the story further, because, of course, as I said, as a science fiction work, it's tough to limit yourself that something cannot be fixed by technology itself, right?
Right.
So you have to work around that and have the problems occur more from a human nature side than from a technological side.
Wow, you're digging deep there. Is there a cliffhanger at the end of this book?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I actually, it's a fun little gimmick that I haven't seen done before. But at the end of the last page, at the very bottom, I left the words "to be continued." So,
yes, there's another book coming. How many books do you foresee?
So my idea for the sequels would be at least 5 books that would. I would love for them to come out at the same time, because the point is for them to intersect in the timeline. Okay. And then, of course, whichever you pick up, it won't matter, because it will have to influence the other books, and you have to read the other books to influence that book itself. Okay. So that's the idea. And then, of course, after those 5, bring them back into one to maybe close out the series as a whole.
Okay, you're going for it. You definitely
it's gonna be a fun adventure. I have laid out the plan. I haven't begun exactly writing them. I have the sort of like a draft of what I would like to be about each book. And then depending on how this book goes, I will be able to devote myself more to writing instead of my day job. I mean, it took me 3 months to write this book start to finish as a first draft. And then after some feedback that I gave my beta readers around, give them 2 months to go through the book, tell me what they think. I then sat down for another extra month to close the gaps, see what apply the feedback. So if I manage to actually have that 4-month period per book, then I guess I can quickly go about the other 5.
You are a very ambitious young man. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you send out what you've written and you ask for feedback. That is something that is very important. And writers that are having some success are finding writing is rewriting. You know, I talk to a lot of people who think that, you know, from my head through my fingers on the page, and I don't touch it after that. And I think it's probably not a great idea. It's always good to get feedback. So that's a good way to go. But obviously the bottom line is marketing the book beyond what Fulton is already doing.
Well, I do have one particular social media influencer kind of guy who's into archaeology. That's his main point that he will reflect on. YouTube, TikTok, he's a rising star. Okay. And he has a very dedicated audience. I'm trying to reach him. I don't know him personally. I'm trying to reach him because his audience mostly came to him because of the interest. He debunks videos of ancient aliens. Right? It's a very popular theme at this moment. And he debunks it through a charismatic approach, teaching people of how things are actually done in those old historical times. And because of the interest of his audience coming to him for searching for answers, I think it's a great combination to work with him in terms of, I see you're interested in this, so here's this. Here's my book, right? So that's one step. Everything else is just putting aside some money and just funneling it into marketing through social media in a clever way, right? You have to find that niche audience, get into those focus groups, try to spread the word as best you can. I mean, already knowing that Fulton chose me to work with me, to help me and publish my book, that's already like a stamp of approval that this works, that this is something that will sell, that they believe in this. And as someone who just started out this author path, I don't consider myself any kind of literary genius or anything like that. Far from it. I just know that I can tell a good story. I put that story into my book. I got the feedback in order to help myself close some gaps, as I said before, and improve a little bit on it so that it's more clear, more understanding. Have those cliffhangers at certain chapters, what's going to happen next, keep the audience reading, wanting more. And I think I managed to do that based on the feedback. And even before Fulton, I had a round of just beta readers from around the world, random people who I never met, never knew before. And I just asked them, please, here's the book for free, give me a review, whatever it is, right? So no strings attached. And obviously, it went great. That's why I'm here. And that's why I want to push forward. And I hope people will find joy while reading this work so that I can finish the story. I want to keep on going. I want to keep on writing because it's fun. At the very end, I give a strong twist, a very big twist that turns the whole book around, giving you a reason to read it again.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking with me today, AA. I appreciate it.
Alice, thank you very much.
Next up, Lagerstroemia Min Huang wrote about nature as a child, but as a retired pathologist, he's published his first book, Fu Si Code. Now, legend has it that Fu Si was the first mythical emperor of China, a divine being with a serpent's body who, with his sister, created humanity.
Fu Si is the name. Chinese legendary person. Actually, there's some argument. Some people say it's a legendary person, but it's just a document in Chinese literature. But most people believe it's a real. It's not a legendary person. They say this is a historical figure. And Chinese nation belief he is the most important cultural figure in our Chinese nation. So people think he is the ancestor of China. He's the first king of a civilized Chinese nation. So that's what people think. Because Fu Si, according to a legendary story and his historical records, he lived 6,000 years ago. Some people think it's 7,000 years ago, 8,000, but just like so pretty long from here. And I believe it is real. I believe it's real. And until now, people don't really just like fully understand this what it is book because it's only images. It's made by 64 images. And images. That's the layman term, but in the scholars call hexagram, Fu Si, hexagram. So every image has 6, yin and yang symbols. Yeah. So 6 yin and yang made this image. So it's a total 64 images. And for 1,000 years, how long passed here? So in the meantime, there's a lot of additions to this 64 images or hexagrams. And people just add words like Confucius and similar like Western culture. You have big king, and there's many small kings. So there's many other, surfing. So he's the number one. He's a cultural figure, just like Jesus, like a Moses. Everybody knows, right? And also, long, just before Jesus or before, I know people still heard, what are the Adams and, just before Jesus and Moses, they're, just like historical figures. And they know something.
He's like a prophet.
Yeah, I think he's perfect. Yeah, he's like a prophet.
Why did you write this now? Or have you been working on this for years?
Actually, I started serious writing this book. It's about 10 years ago. I found it very difficult, extremely difficult. But for some reason, I was just kind of like my brain just suddenly just like.
I mean, I can't imagine.
I think I was inspired speed up in probably 6 years ago, because by the time, because of the the internet war, everything internet. While doing the writing the book, I have a lot of hard times, because people in China know I'm writing the book, and they are interested in my book, especially in the the government, or let's say this the ruling class. The ruling class, that there are some kind of problems where their beliefs is these days more and more people, they wake up. They don't believe the logic of communism. They think it's just like kind of like it's not realistic.
Right.
It's not realistic. In the real world, because your ideology may sound great, but the problems, if you want to, you say, okay, you want to achieve your dream in the real world, make the entire world, be happy, like live in the communist dream. If it's achievable, okay, fine. The problem is your dream, in in the real world,
right?
It's just lies. Because it's not achievable. It's not achievable. Because you have a very good ideology. You say, communism, how great? Okay, we all agree with you. But tell us, how to achieve your dream? You are dealing with a human. If you dealing with a human, you are dealing with human nature. What's human nature?
Right.
Human nature just in the Fuxi code, in the Fuxi philosophy, it's just between 0 and 1. Everything between 0 and 1 is a process. So like anything is yin or yang, and
right.
something between yin or yang. Just like in Western, in science, like computer science,
right?
0, 1, right? Yeah. So there's something you have to be just like absolute. Everything like one person decides the fate, the destiny, the lifestyle, how they think.
Right.
It's just not right. Yeah, nobody accepts that.
Right.
And then, especially if you ruling style is very brutal, so people cannot criticize you.
Right.
People cannot against you. Wow, do we like Biden? We don't like Biden, but somebody may like Biden. Okay, it's fine. You support Biden, good.
Right.
You don't like Biden, you just criticize Biden. Biden is not going to kill you, right?
Right.
No one is going to kill you, right? You have the right, just express, but you have to maintain yourself within your borders. You cannot cross your border, invade somebody else's border. So like you have your belief. I have I believe. Okay, you are civilized person. I civilized person. So you keep your thought or your rights within your border. I keep my thought, my rights within my border. I don't invade your border.
Right.
You don't invade my border, right?
Yeah.
So we respect each other. That's the way. So like a human beings, with a good part, half good, and half bad, just like a yin and yang, or half are yin, half and yang. Okay, so we keep our border and respect each other. So we have a meeting in between. So that's why the meeting is like a community or society. So we have to make a rule. The rule may not be perfect, but it has to be fair to everyone. Okay?
Right.
And we all follow the rules. We have to follow. You don't follow the rules, you got punishment. If you say, oh, there's a law, there's a rules, it's not good. Okay, we can change it. But just like you play the poker game, okay? When the game, after you give a card, you start the game, okay?
Right.
You have the right to fold, or you have the right to bet, and you can right to call or in or something. That's your choice, okay? And then if you say cheating, something you think is not right. Okay, after the game is over,
Right.
let's change the rule. You cannot just in the middle of the game, you say, I'm going to change the rule.
What is your best hope for this book? I mean, I doubt people in China are going to be allowed to read this book, right?
I don't know. I think the story is they will have a chance to read it. But right now, the communists, I wrote the book. First, I just write this book purely philosophy book. I don't talk about politics or very try to be very neutral.
Right.
But the populists, the communist regime, they are very powerful. The Chinese government, the communist government, very powerful. They control almost the entire world, including the United States. I didn't even know that. I said, oh, United States, how they can control the United States? Because they have the power including they can do anything they want, and they can control all resources. They control all the money. You see how big is China?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 1.4 billion. Yeah, Chinese people, they generate lots of wealth, and the wealth controlled by one person, one party.
Right.
And the 1.4 billion Chinese, that's nothing, That's nothing. And there's nothing they can do about it. If they don't have the resources, they can't even live.
Right.
The resources are controlled by the communist government. And before they just say, okay, don't talk about politics, just do what I tell you. But this is a world other than communist China. Every country is called United States of America.
Right.
And also there's a country, or other country, the civilized country. They don't follow the rules.
Are you hoping that people in the United States read this book?
I don't know, I think they can understand the book, but according to the feedback, it's a very young generation. They love my book. And I believe my book will be more and more popular.
Okay.
Because when the communist China is crashing down right now, and China will become a civilized country, just like all other countries.
Right.
We all are not perfect. United States is not perfect. United States politics is not perfect. So we just have to tolerate each other,
Right.
and learn from each other, and keep us within the boundaries. The communists, the worst thing they have influence on the 1.4 Chinese people is that people don't know the boundaries. So my book will help people be civilized, stay within your boundaries, respect other people's boundaries. So I cannot change every single person. Because people from my country, just like from China, ask me to save 1.4 billion Chinese people. Say, sir, please save 1.4 billion of your species. I said, I don't have that power. What I do I try to change the environment, change the environment. So people change themselves. So people understand, right, feeling left, can tell wrong, feeling right. And I have done my job. So people train themselves. I try to train the environment of the world, more civilized, civilization. That's what I hope.
All right. Very noble effort here.
Thanks.
And good luck with your book.
Thank you.
All right. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Reader House Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.